What's up, fellow Lords of Gaming? Welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Fight. We got a lot to get to inside this update, so let's jump right on in. So first of all, we know we're getting uniforms for three heroes, Dr. Voodoo, Dr. Strange, and then Sister Grimm. I think overall the uniforms aesthetically looked very, very pleasing. They don't have bad uniform options as we showed in the live stream with 3RL. The question is how impactful these uniforms will be for each of the individual characters. I think the biggest impact that we're going to pretty much see is going to be on Sister Grimm, who is getting a monumental upgrade in terms of what she had going in. We also get the introduction of a whole new character in Man-Thing. But I want to talk about one topic really quickly, is where these characters sit in terms of where they're going to be supported at overall, and whether or not it's something that you should have or shouldn't have. Now, when we look at a character like Doctor Strange, for instance, I think bar none, you're pretty much looking at that character as being viable and viably needed, and it's probably going to be the penultimate character, blast male superhero for the game. He's competing with with Adam Warlock, with Iron Man, Professor X, Star-Lord, Cable. But when you look at the characters, male blast characters that are coming up behind him, he doesn't really have a whole lot of competition behind him, and so he could really be poised to do a whole lot. Now remember that this T3 uniform that we got for the Multiverse of Madness was the Doctor Strange 2 uniform. It wasn't that long ago, and it wasn't a bad uniform, and probably still not a bad uniform. So him just probably getting to level 80 and getting the T4 is probably going to be beneficial. But that raises another question that I have for the game. I'm going to try to blow through this pretty quickly, so I'm not going to linger on skills like I would normally do by comparison. And I just want to talk about some of the overall effects that you're seeing inside of the character, right? So number one, they introduce his T4, and there's a problem with this because we're essentially starting to get this writ large. All he's getting is an increase of all basic attacks by 50% on his skill. That's it. That's all you're getting for his striker skill. Like, this is like the plainest of striker skills that I think we could have probably seen in quite a while. Like, I think Iron Man's T4, at the very least, when you look at it, his striker skill, you know, he enabled enemies attacking to ignore targeting. Look at the skill that you have there for his striker skill. And so he created a super shield, recharges 2500, rechargeable up to 100, increased attack by 2.5 per 1% of the super hit. And we then look at a Doctor Strange, and you're like, yo, what the fleek? Like, that's nothing. Like, I hate to say that, but it really is nothing. It's 50% attack. That's what we're looking at for the character. I don't know, and it kind of like sort of goes downhill in my opinion when we're starting to look at the cost of increasing for a character level for something that we would have probably routinely just seen as a uniform effect or applied onto a skill or something like that. Because just saying that I'm going to get a Doctor Strange who's going to get increased all basic attacks by 50%, that doesn't really seem like a striker skill. Like, there's what's the effect that's happening here? Like, it's just a buff. So next up, when you look at like Sister Grimm, well, you know, she's still got the likes of Storm to compete with. She still has the possibility of Spectrum getting her Marvel uniform when the Marvels movie is released. Now, I don't think that she's going to necessarily compete with her, just because if you know, then you know. God dang it, why does this thing always mess up on this damn BlueStacks? So then she also has to compete with, you know, Sharon Rogers, you know, the possibility of, you know, Emma getting her update. You still got Psylocke behind her. She's still competing with Blue Dragon over here. Like, so she's got a lot of people to compete with. And there's also females in the back end who she could probably likely have as contenders for her in the future. Now, you know, certain characters like Magic, for instance, you know, Crystal and Miss Fantastic, you know, like Sue Storm. These are characters that she could be competing with that you're like, man, your tier 3 better be really good. Like, that's essentially what I'm looking at, right? And then the worst of the three is gonna be Dr. Voodoo, because he's essentially competing in a class where he has no room to compete. You got Thor and Odin, who are at the top of the meta inside there, and you still got Sentry and Silver Surfer to follow them back up. You also have Ghost Rider, Adam Brashear. I really think they'll probably put him off for as long as they can, and then still screw him over. If you know, then you know. You got Beta Ray Bill. You've got both of the Novas, Sam Alexander and Richard Rider, except for the fact that Richard Rider is now, like, Sam Alexander can get his Transcendence, but Richard Rider is still sitting over here at tier 2 for some goddamn reason. Who knows? I don't know that we'll be seeing a return to the Eternals or even Hyperion. You could have something that comes for, you know, for Vision, but who knows, right? Now, behind them, there's not a lot of characters there, but he just doesn't seem like he's going to have a place in there other than you leveling him up, because you have incentive now in the new the team collection option that you now have. So that's somewhat of the disappointment. The same thing exists for kind of like Man-Thing as well. You know, he's a combat superhero who's competing against some very stiff competition in tier 4s. Moon Knight, Venom, Black Panther, Wolverine. Like, there's some stiff competition here. Now, his artifact, if you should get his artifact, should make him a really heavyweight contender. But it's going to be a matter of if you are lucky enough to get his artifact, and then you probably see new levels with the character, and we'll talk about that here right now. So look at the artifacts that are basically being released. Remember, Doctor Strange will not get an artifact inside here because he already has his previous artifact. The passive on it's pretty nice. It basically, activation rate, 5% chance when the time freezing effect is used, applies to self. He gets to enable attacking enemies who have the ignore targeting, and then he gets the increase all basic attack and the dodge damage inside there as well. So he already has his. So then you're basically looking at the other artifacts for the new characters coming in, like, or you know, for instance, Sister Grimm's got a pretty mediocre Mystic Lineage artifact, ignore targets, dodge rate, whatever. And then you get Dr. Voodoo, who's get decreased basic damage received by 30 and increase all basic attacks by 15. Who cares? But then you see that his skill, he's basically getting when HP is below 40%, he recovers HP by 60%, and then he also increases max HP by 60%. This could make him a serious tank. And I want to look at his upgrades, because I'm just going to pay attention to some of them. I don't want to, you know, I want to pop out some of these, but I don't want to, like, you know, go too deep into detail, because otherwise this video could drag on with the amount of information that's contained inside the patch details. So inside his kit, you can see right here on his leadership alone, he's getting a 30% increase of HP to all allies and a nice decreased debuff duration by 30% as well. And then you see on his Force of Nature passive, he's recovering a very small, but it's a 5% HP gain that he's getting whenever he's below 99%. So you hit him hard, and then he's probably going to regain that HP if you have the artifact, and then you're going to have to deal with basically putting out enough damage where you can get him down to 0 really quickly, so that way he's just out of there. Now, that's going to be dependent on how much HP he actually has. It seems like he's going to have a whole lot of HP though, right? Especially if you look at the team function inside of there. His kit overall, to me, pretty well balanced. There's a lot there going on. He has the new ability of Panic on 4 of his skills, I believe it is, because he has Panic here on his 2, his 2, his 4, his 5, and I believe it's also on his Awakening skill as well. So let's take a look at that one real quick. Yeah, it's on his Awakening skill as well, which Dr. Voodoo also gains it. So you can see here with the Panic, it says that it increases basic damage received to enemies by 30%. So that could be really nice. The question is, does it stack, right? So if I'm basically into my rotation, is the damage received being increased overall? We'll have to see how that works out, because it could very well. I don't think 3RL said anything about it, but overall, liking the kit right here that we have for Man-Thing. Is his first, you know, and he's coming as a Transcendent. So luckily they didn't do the bull crap with the tier 2 again, right? Because that would have just been terrible, right, for him to come back. So not a whole lot to say there about him. His accumulation is on his 5th skill, so kudos to there, right? So then we look at Dr. Voodoo and his their Transcendence animation, which I actually like. I think it's a really cool animation with the two of them teaming up. My main problem with Dr. Voodoo's skills is going to be the fact that he has
poison as the primary attribute for his damage type. It's the same thing like bleed. It just doesn't work, especially when you look at like his tier, his passive, where tier 1 passive, where he's basically getting a heal based on the poison effect being there. So like applies to enemy, decreases. So maybe this changed because it just says recovers 20% of HP. I thought it was when a poison effect was applied. Applies to enemy, decrease activation when attacking an enemy. So that's only there, but now we get the recovery of 20. Let me take a look at this one real quick inside his skill, because I thought it was different from that before, but maybe I'm wrong. So Voodoo Ritual, yeah, okay, so they changed it. Yay, okay, cool. So before it was 90% chance to activate when attacking an enemy with poison effect. So you had to have that poison effect inside there, and it just is like, yo, it's like the poison effect doesn't make sense. But now it looks like they've changed it, so he just basically, no, this can't be it. So like it's still here. Activation rate when attacking an enemy with poison effect applies to enemies. They get the like this is written just terribly. So he still gets it, but the recovery is 20% HP. The problem is that this is not going to apply inside World Boss. So like you pretty much still end up with a Shadowland, you know, type character because that 20%. Now, I will say that he does get his accumulation on the 5th skill, and he gets the recovery of 25% HP there. So if you have a way to make this work, he can be pretty powerful because he gets the 20% HP here and he gets the 25% HP there. So it's a really nice 45% HP gain across his passive and his tier 5 ability. So it'll probably make him a real strong Shadowland character, but it's a Shadowland damn character. Like, I don't want characters built for Shadowland. I don't think anybody wants characters built for Shadowland. So it's somewhat there. Now, his leadership does change as well because you get to increase all basic attacks by 30, which is added onto his skills. I do like that his uniform effect has ignore targets dodge rate by 30% on there as well. Don't forget that when we look at the team up collection now that they're adding to the game, you're probably going to get boosts overall from there as well. So I think the kit for him is not too bad, but I have to really wait to see how this character plays out. I didn't level him really significantly before because it was another one of those areas where you're like, hey, do I really have a need to increase this character? Because am I going to play him anything outside of Shadowland? Nah, I didn't. So that's where it's at. So Sister Grimm, like, I don't think there's a whole lot to say about Sister Grimm because no matter how you look at it, this is going to be a major overall boost for the character. She gets her activation on her tier 3 ability, which I'll show you here in a second. But you notice that I just want you to look at the stats here so that way you can see her and everything that she's bringing to the table. She applies to magic allies where she gets recovers 10% of HP and removes all debuffs for 15 seconds inside of her passive ability, which was formerly blood magic. How much of a need will that be? With some of the team up collections is going to be the question. But overall, her kit is what her kit is, especially when you look at what she previously had, which wasn't a whole lot. Funny enough, she had this all new, all different uniform, right? But then when you go inside her skills and you look at them, this was like, how old was this? Like, there's nothing on her skills. So there are no effects on her skills in any shape, form, or way. And it's just, there's just a whole lot of nothing there. So no matter how you look at it, this is going to be a major boost for the character. Huge, insane boost for the character, just simply getting the uniform. Not to mention, I think aesthetically, a lot of people will like the uniform because I thought it looked absolutely amazing inside of the live stream last night. Dying to see what it looks like after the update tonight on the screen. So I think overall, this is a major boost to it. Now we get to the meat and potatoes because I think everybody's going to be happy about this uniform, and that's Doctor Strange. So we get Doctor Strange inside the game. We'll do a little comparison of his skills here specifically, but it looks like all they've really done with Doctor Strange is move some things around, right? Now, I really question whether or not there's a hint to characters that we could potentially see getting the mid-month. So for instance, right, let's pull up just the all abilities inside of here, and we can just go to magic. Let's get rid of the combat and just go all types, and then we'll go all sides as well. So these are some of the magic characters that are currently listed in the game. Now, if you've read the Death in Doctor Strange comic book, then you know the killer who was it was like pretty much dumpster fire was Capellix. Capellix hasn't received anything in way of an update in quite a while in terms of uniforms, so he did receive his transcendence. Could that mean that I doubt they're going to put him at tier 4. It would just make no sense for him to get tier 4. Could we see Baron Mordo get something? Could you see Clea maybe? I think Clea hasn't had an update in quite some time, so it could be very interesting to see any one of these magic characters essentially get an update. I think with the month of October being here, they'd be really remiss not to update Dormammu, or to give Mephisto something at least in theme with it. There's a lot of different ways they could go with the Dormammu and the Mephisto updates, especially since you got a world boss legend and you got a giant boss raid. It would just feel fitting for them to get their T3s. Or we could even, without by some miracle, Doctor Doom, because he's a magic type allied character, gets an update. I don't know. I really don't know the direction that they're taking, because they're really weird with this stuff. But we do know Capellix played a major role in this uniform. So let's take a look at Doctor Strange overall. So off the bat and off the rip, let's take a look at the uniform effect, because we do get a significant boost on his uniform effect. He only had the 30-25, which is going to be increase of 40 and 35, and then we get the critical damage increase added to it for 35, and the guaranteed crit rate by 25, which will make the character a lot easier to max out in terms of his stats overall. So now the problem that I notice inside a lot of Doctor Strange skills is that it just appears to be a lot of movement of skills, right? And even worse than the movement of skills is that what I was noticing on some of the skills is essentially the energy damage and his energy attack and damage, those were being decreased significantly. So like for instance, on one of his skills, I think he got a decrease from like 135 to like 80% energy attack, and then it was like from there it went down even lower to like there were some skills here that it was just like it was pretty clear like these were some serious decreases overall. So like his third skill, which was Mystic Circle Bomb, is now a decrease from that 137% I think it is to his Mystic Black Hole is just going to be 70%. Now whether or not you figure they're making up for some of those decreases, because there's decreases in places enough where it's like, do these stats here make up for those decreases essentially, which basically means that they're just a balance of the stats. I don't know. I think that overall the kit from what we got to see looked absolutely amazing. I have questions about the tier 4, especially it being so goddamn simple in terms of just being a very simple, and we didn't get to see what the skill looks like when activated, so I don't know what's being applied, but it just looks like a simple buff, and that 50% buff could have been put anywhere on the kit. Like a 50% increase of all attack, you know, that could have been just put anywhere as a frenzy buff or something like that. It just doesn't holler tier 4, you know what I mean? So essentially I think the way they're looking at this is like, we just had this character not too long ago. You could just be looking at the characters in terms of like the same thing that they did with Black Widow, right? Like, yeah, he's getting a new uniform and he's basically the level 80 is going to make him that much better. It wasn't like the character was a bomb of a character at tier 3, so it wasn't like they had to do a whole lot in terms of, you know, pushing the character further. But when you look at the kit overall, a lot of this looks like skills moved around. You know, his increase of his HP, like his HP buff and stuff like that, that's basically moved from one skill to the other, where he then gets the 25% HP increase, and then his like accumulation is moved around. That's basically what the character kit is looking like. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend you know, he's one of my favorite characters, and I do anticipate and envision he's probably going to be like the penultimate blast type male character, so he's probably going to be a must-have.
for the character kit overall. So you know, in that vein, I think that it's quite a bit there. I do love the fact that on his 4th skill as well, which is now going to be called Astral Projection, instead of just having a simple skill with Astral Projection, we're actually gonna have a V-pad skill. So it didn't get shown in the live stream because we just got the skill, like, but this is one of those things that is worth pointing out, is that it's a V-pad skill, which allows him to basically move around on the battlefield and ignore damage in some types of ways. So it's really good. Now, what I really question is when I look at his kit overall, whether or not we'll be able to use this character in as a two-way character. It'd be nice to be able to have some characters reintroduced for like two-way characters, like especially with his time freezing effect inside a game mode like Otherworld Battle, maybe not necessarily inside of like Timeline Battle. Now, remember, I was reminded in one of my comments sections videos that Doctor Strange once was meta inside in Timeline Battle, specifically because it's time freezing. Whether he'll be, you know, meta again or whether he could fit into that window, hard to say. But I do question whether or not this kit could bring him to that prominence. I doubt it, but I would love it if he could be a two-way character. So I'm liking the kit overall, not necessarily liking his uniform at all, especially when you look at some of the comparisons there. Now, one of the big updates that we have is the team up collection. So let me just pull that window up and we can talk about it there. So you can see the team up collection here. They're only introducing the Midnight Suns, Sinister Six, and X-Force, and then they have the list of characters who those tags will apply to. So you got, for instance, the Midnight Suns, Doctor Strange, Iron Fist, Ghost Rider. So if you haven't leveled any of these characters up, there's probably going to be missions that a lot of us will blow through, probably because it'll be probably missions to level these characters up the same way they are inside of like story mode or the way they are inside of the epic quest. You got to get these characters up in order to get to this level, get this character up to level 70, get their gears up to this type missions, so that way you could then see the bonuses for those characters, and then you'll be able to set a specific type of, you know, team up options basically for them. So like here, for instance, you can see on the 5 skill, you have the ability to choose between 3 different ones, where you can either have, you know, the basic damage dealt to boss types, the basic damage dealt to supervillains, or the basic damage dealt to superhero faction. Why you would have it as superhero faction, I have no fucking clue. But then you can see over here on the 6, which is revealed as well, is that you can apply mental resistance because it applies to human allies. So it increased poison resist or it increased mind resist on a character, which is interesting because then you end up with characters who have mind resist inside of world boss, inside Shadowlands, that can then be used for that. You can see over here at level 7, it applies to Midnight Suns, decreased basic damage received from superheroes, supervillains, or basic damage from boss types as well. So the options are going to basically be able to staggering, you know, accumulate over the course of those. Now the question is going to be whether or not those team up options are going to be significant impacts. Like for instance, when we look at comic cards, you see a significant impacts, whereas we look at like something like Shield Archive or those don't really amount to a whole lot. You spend a lot of time trying to get after those, but they don't amount to a whole lot in terms of change. Those are also going to be able to be leveled up, so to increase their effects, we'll have to see what the level 10 effects look like inside there. I think at most we saw during 3RL doing it was like a 10% increase, which could be, you know, could be significant, and you'll collect these tokens from doing them. So I like that they've added a new system. They also mentioned inside the patch notes that characters will more than likely end up with multiple tags. So like Wolverine's a perfect example. He could end up, he has the X-Force tag that we see here, right? So Wolverine's there. He could also have the X-Men tag. A lot of these characters could be X-Force X-Men, right? They could be X-Force X-Men X-Factor, right? Like, because they've all probably been on that team at one point or another. And this basically gives us a way to get there. Now, when that does happen, you will not get both options. You'll get the higher of the 2 options or all your additional options. So the next big impact that I wanted to point out inside the game is that the game reward mode improvements for your first clear of story mode for the ultimate section have been improved. So now for completing story mode ultimate, you can get tier 4 materials from there. Whether this means, so like you say, the wars improve and items such as tier 4 materials, dimension chests, which are 3-star artifacts, and uniform upgrade tickets, mythic, have been added, so you can check the first clear reward by tapping the reward icon. So it's important to point out that like those exclusive artifacts can be acquired from the dimension chest, 3-star, and the fact that this is going to be reset after the update. So if you haven't been doing story mode and you haven't completed it, then you probably want to jump in here. Now this only mentions your first clear rewards, so I'm going to assume that the combined fragments haven't necessarily been upgraded, but we'll stick around and see. Maybe it's just not mentioned here, and we'll see. The Otherworld Premium Battle Pass rewards, they claim that they are improved. I don't really look at these as improvements though, because instead of you just getting 2 Radiant Element rune chests, you're going to get 4 of them, right? But the problem with these type of things where they say, well, these are reward increases, that these are not reward increases in my opinion. These are possible reward increases, because if I get 2 Radiant Element rune chests and then I get 4 now, so I have more chances at getting the benefit of that Radiant Element rune chest. But if I fail, then it doesn't really amount to a new reward in my opinion. Like, it's just like you increase the chance passively, and that's what you've sold me on. So it's not a whole lot. Now, I think more importantly is that they pointed out the Alliance tournament ranks rewards have been improved, and you can see those numbers here in terms of what they look like, along with the chest available for the items. I think that's a big benefit, because this should force people who do play Alliance tournament maybe to play it a little bit more seriously, or get more invested, and maybe even impress upon players like myself who are in active alliances to start looking at maybe some of these getting inside some alliances that are a little bit more active to get after these rewards, especially when I'm looking down here and I'm seeing, there's Souls of 14 that are available inside the Alliance tournament modes, 1, 200, 150 Souls of the 14 are very beneficial, Titan component packs, Essence Dimension, like these rewards beneath that. But I really like to look at the Souls of the 14 and say, hey, maybe I should be playing those, so that way I can get some of these rewards, because if I'm going to get, another way at earning Souls of 14, then they're there. Also is the Multiverse Invasion. Instead of you getting Boost ESO 8, now you're just going to be getting Boost ESO 8 instead of normal ESO 8 rewards. So you notice that it says that this applies to basic rewards, VIP rewards, and Shield's special support rewards. I like the idea of getting Boost ESO instead of ESO 8, specifically because of what it does to the inventory. Oh my God, that we still haven't, like, if you look at the inventory over here, the large majority of my inventory is taken up by these ESO 8, and they could just be simple boost ESO that are simply sat inside here, and those stack on top of each other. But here we get like the boost ESO, and like every single one that's just like a point increment different becomes like another goddamn boost ESO. And it's weird because even the ones that are like stacked here where you could potentially stack them, because you see it says 100 all basic attack 158, right? That one's 157, and this one's 159, this one's 159. You could stack the two 159, so that way I have inventory space. Like, there's no reason why those couldn't be, like, numbers couldn't be stacked. But we have to figure out a way for this. Like, this system is just like, it's a little asinine. It's a little pale. It's a little old, and it's clear that it's driven. Especially like right now, think about it in this like new characters and how many new characters are introduced in a basis. Like me carrying this many ESO, especially for things like Nimble ESO 8 or the Fierce ESO 8 or even like your Vital ESO 8, I can just get rid of a whole lot of these, but I hold on to them with the anticipation that I might need them or something like that. But they're becoming a lot more of a burden to your inventory more than anything. Now obviously the inventory, selling the shield support mission is a big thing, so you could end up there as well. So outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot. I was really hoping to see maybe some stuff inside there for like an improvement to Black Panther's tier 5 skill, but not tier 5, his 5th skill, which has a short range on it. But we do get the future pass. I'm not really a fan of any of the special icons, so I'm not really enthralled to purchase any of these special passes. They haven't changed rewards at all really for the special passes either, so
not really jumping out at me. The uniform collections are there. You can also see that they made some improvements to the artifact chest and so forth. And there's some minor game improvements that they talk about down here. The main ones is the reforge options being utilized when you have the CTP of Insight. So if you have like a team where maybe you have like for instance, my Sif and my Valkyrie have CTP of Insights. So if you put the two of them on a team, instead of you just getting one of the reforge options applied, you'll get the both reforge options applied. So like, I think that happens with me with like, Shuri and Ironheart. I put the two of them on teams a lot just to get those passive bonuses from them. Then you could have something like that. So if you have any characters where you're getting dual CTP of Insights on, this works out. I mean, I'm gonna assume that it also works out when you play these characters in like Otherworld Battle. So if you had, for instance, like Shuri inside of Otherworld Battle, and then you had like Colossus, you got both of them equipped with CTP of Insights, then you'll have those. Last but not least is the Multiverse Invasion. Instead of you having to play that mode for 2 minutes, you can now just play it for 1 minute. So it's a total of 10 minutes reduced in time. So there's a lot inside of here. Looking forward to seeing what it actually pans out to in the update. We'll have to see. I'm really looking forward to the team up collection, see what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until later tonight, peace.